Alright guys, so a very beautiful and obviously intelligent woman from America has commented on our Facebook page, said all the segments are funny as fuck and Discourse is really good too. I especially enjoy the movie reviews.
Oh,
as I say, everybody's favourite segment.
Yeah, whatever, mate.
I find that difficult to believe.
Welcome back, and that was Duran Duran with the Wild Boys. Today we'll be talking about Dyatlov Pass and the infamous unexplained death of 9 Russian hikers in early 1959. My name is Brad, and I'm a bad person, and today, for the first time ever, I'll be your host. I'm joined by Lachlan.
Yay, well done, Brad.
There you go. I'm joined by Lachlan, our resident nihilist, and Morgan, a highly advanced robot unable to comprehend societal norms. How are you guys today?
I am confused and angry. I need to get this Dyatlov Pass incident out of my brain. I've done nothing but think about it for the last 2 weeks.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
You feel pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
That's good to hear, mate. I'm well. Thanks for asking.
That's good. Thank you for telling us how you are, Brad.
I'm very anxious because it is my first time hosting, so please be gentle.
You're gonna do great.
Yeah. Well.
And if you don't, our listeners will tear you to shreds.
Yeah.
When you set your mind to it, you can do things, Brad. So don't worry, we believe in you.
I'm loving the pep talk. Keep going.
We believe in you.
So anyway, let me set the scene for anyone who is not familiar with Dyatlov Pass. Its eerie history. In early 1959, in Soviet Russia, an albeit young but highly experienced Igor Dyatlov assembles a group of his acquaintances to go on a long and arduous hike through the Ural Mountains in hopes of obtaining their Certificate 3 in hiking. The group consists of young, fit, experienced hikers that are all well known to each other, except for the oldest member of the group, Semyon Zolotaryov. By the way, I am not Russian, so if I butcher any names, please don't eviscerate me. Despite being some 15 years older than the rest of the group, it appears by all accounts that he was quickly welcomed and well-liked. The group totaling 10 is comprised of 8 men and 2 women, all led by Igor Dyatlov. The group set out from Yekaterinburg and alternated between modes of transport, catching a train to the city of Ivdel on the morning of January 25th, before catching a ride on the back of a truck to the small city of Vizhai the following day. Once there, the group stayed overnight before hiring local sleds to help them bring all of their gear to an abandoned geological shack further north. It's at this point in time that one of the members succumbs to an old back injury. Yuri Yudin is forced to turn back. It's a decision that will save his life. After a heartfelt goodbye, the group heads out to complete their predetermined route up the Gora-Orton mountain.
Or did he know something that the others didn't know?
Maybe. It is January 28th, and it's the last time anyone will see them alive.
Oh.
Ominous.
Bum.
Despite the whole journey being well documented through both group journal and many photographs, inexplicably, Igor Dyatlov changes the group's intended course and takes a much more difficult course up the side of a nearby mountain, Kholat Syakhl. Known to the local Mansi tribe as Dead Mountain or Mountain of the Dead, Kholat Syakhl would earn its reputation as all 9 remaining hikers would be dead by the 2nd of February. Some have speculated that Dyatlov changed the path to ensure the group would achieve their Certificate 3. Others believe that weather conditions made it more difficult to navigate and they were forced to travel to Kholat Syakhl before attempting the Gora-Orton mountain. Regardless of Dyatlov's motives, the group would make their final campsite on Kholat Syakhl at some time around 4 p.m. on February 1st. The group appeared to be relaxed, eating a final meal at approximately 6 p.m. and feeling comfortable enough to be in varying states of undress. At some stage during the night, some real or imagined threat drove the experienced hikers out of the relative safety of their tent and into the freezing snowstorm. Many are not wearing shoes, all of them are underdressed for the weather that they have been thrust into. A clear story of what unfolded next has never been revealed, so I will now provide the undisputed facts. The hikers left their tent for some unknown reason, evidently in a hurry, as the tent was cut open from the inside out. All the hikers' gear and provisions were left in a hurry to escape the tent. The hikers were well provisioned and highly experienced, and must have known that they could not survive for long without them. 2 of the hikers' clothing contained high amounts of radiation when discovered by rescuers. The hikers appear to have taken an almost single-file route to the tree line some 1,500 meters below their campsite. A torch was located on top of the tent, possibly left in an attempt to help the group locate the tent if they should return. Upon reaching the tree line, it appears that a fire was attempted under a large cedar tree. The cedar tree had possibly been climbed, branches were broken some 5 meters up the trunk. The motives behind this are unknown or unconfirmed. At the base of the tree, the first 2 bodies of hikers were found. Georgy Krivonychenko and Yuri Doroshenko are found in next to no clothing, merely undershirts and underwear, with non-lethal burns on their bodies. In an attempt to head back to the tent, 3 hikers seem to succumb to hypothermia. Igor Dyatlov, some 300 meters back up the slope. Rustem Slobodin, another 100 meters past Igor. And Zinaida Kolmogorova, a further 100 meters past Rustem. Zina was only 870 meters from the tent. Zinaida, Rustem, and Igor were all oriented as if they had been heading back to the tent. At some stage, the remaining 4 hikers made their way down into a ravine, constructing a makeshift snow den. For whatever reason, the remaining 4 hikers' bodies were then located further down the ravine in close proximity to each other, only is disputed somewhere between 75 and 700 meters from the base of the large cedar tree. The bodies of the remaining 4 hikers, Kolovetov, Zolotaryov, Thibault-Brignol, and Dubinina, had all sustained massive internal injuries likened to that of a car crash. Strangely, despite these massive internal injuries, there were no external soft tissue injuries, prompting the medical examiner to conclude that they couldn't be caused by man. Stranger yet, when researchers located Zolotaryov and Dubinina's corpses, they had no eyes. Dubinina's tongue was also missing.
Oh.
All 9 bodies had various cuts, scrapes, and contusions. The 2 at the base of the cedar tree had minor burns. All were not life-threatening. The only life-threatening injuries were sustained by the 4 hikers in the ravine. Despite all the minor and major injuries, the cause of death in all 9 hikers was determined to be hypothermia brought about while fleeing from some unknown compelling force. The unexplained and mysterious worded cause of death has left many people to speculate over the preceding decades. Was there an unknown assailant after the group? The military or KBG? Did an animal attack them? Was the Yeti the culprit? Were they driven insane by infrasound, alcohol, or the strain of mental fatigue? Did an avalanche drive them from their tent? Perhaps a military test triggered said avalanche. All we know for certain is that all 9 experienced hikers felt compelled by this mysterious force to flee into -15 to -30 degree weather without shoes in some cases, and that whatever that force was, it was preferable to die in the Siberian wilderness than to face it.
Oh,
so, boys, Yeti or the KGB, which was it?
What the fuck happened? What happened on that fucking mountain?
No one can see this, but Lachlan's face is red.
Oh my god.
Now. It's outrageous. There's so much fury.
I think Lachlan needs to calm down. Maybe if he has a beer, he'll feel a bit better.
Yep. So, yeah, before we get into the preliminary theories, Lachlan, would you like to crack open a cold one with the boys?
It's time to crack open a cold one with the boys. I deserve this beer. So this week I have a Dutch Windmill, which is predictably a Dutch beer. It is a lager. It's 4.6% alcohol. And I have never tried it before. I got it as a sample at work, and I thought I'd save it for this special occasion.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Oh, I love that sound. That was a good one.
That's a good crack.
One of your best yet.
Not as wet as the Guinness.
It's not bad.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, excellent. Hey.
Finally, first one
of the season. Hey, good job, Lucky.
It's only taken 8 weeks.
Hey, and just to be safe now, I think you should review this beer for 5 weeks straight so you know you're going to enjoy a beer every week.
Fuck you guys.
I think Brad would probably pick up on it this time.
Yeah, I think so, hopefully. I fucking hope so, actually, yeah. Alright, so let's get into the...
Oh, that was a great introduction, Brad. That was a really good That was a
you
really
like
good
that?
summary.
It was thorough. I mean, I tried to cover all the bases, but
Yeah, no, it was very good.
So yeah, we'll get into the primary theories here. So we're going to take it step at a time, go through each theory, just for those who are listening, and then we'll move on to the next
deep dive this shit.
Yeah,
This episode's going to be 15 hours long.
Yeah, longest episode of any podcast ever.
All right, so we're going to start off with the Yeti, boys.
That's it. That was a very short podcast, I guess.
All right,
actually.
All right, well, did the Yeti or some sort of abominable snowman or snowmen attack the members of Dyatlov's expedition? The team was forced to cut their way out of the tent and leave. This could explain the radiation on the clothing as well, and the damage to the tree, the big cedar tree. Fittingly, it would also explain the injuries not caused by man, as cited by the medical examiner. I'm a little less versed in this particular theory, so please feel free to enlighten me if you've got anything else to add. But from what I can tell, I don't think it fits particularly well, but that's just me. So,
Before we do get further into this theory, I just want to point out, Morgan and I both firmly believe that the Yeti exists. Brad does not.
No, I'm not as convinced as you.
You can go back and listen to our cryptozoology episodes from season 1. But I just want to point out a little bit of news in the Yeti world.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently, about 2 weeks ago, as of recording this, the Indian Army found Yeti footprints on a mountain in Nepal, and they published a photo of that on Twitter. You can check my Twitter at Lachlan Glenn to see those photos. 100% indisputable evidence.
Yes, I would definitely trust the word of the Indian Army.
99% indisputable evidence of the Yeti was, of course, the Dyatlov Pass incident that we're talking about. There's almost certainly the Yeti, which does exist, and probably still exists, but definitely existed in 1959. Now, there are many reasons why it was the Yeti. We talked about this in, like Lachlan said, in the first season. That's how I became aware of the Dyatlov Pass incident, because it was clearly the Yeti incident. And then people have come up with all these theories, to try to disprove the Yeti theory. But, I mean, it's the clear main theory. So, there's one of the chicks had her tongue removed and her eyeballs removed. Yeah, no sane animal is going to do that. You're going to need some sort of insane monkey man,
Well, I mean, just...
Is that all you got?
Just to play devil's advocate here, she was, face down in a creek. You don't think decomposition might have had a part to do with that, or
yes,
100% Yeti?
The missing eyeballs and soft tissue on her face is consistent with decomposition caused by being dead face down in running water.
Yes.
But her tongue, that wasn't a result of the running water, because they found approximately 100 milligrams of blood in her stomach, which suggests that her heart was still beating when her tongue was removed from her head.
When she was Yeti'd. Okay, fair enough.
No, I mean, Brad,
that does add some eeriness.
I'm sure you're well aware of this, but the guys on this hike were taking lots of photos. They were trying to pass a university course, so they were documenting this really, really well.
Yes.
And they have a photo of the Yeti as one of their photos.
Oh my god. No, they do not.
I have not seen this photo.
You explain what that is.
It's a person. It's a dude just off in the distance.
Why would a guy be that hairy and that naked in the Siberian wilderness?
Not hairy or naked.
It's full of black hair. It's just
you can only see his silhouette because it's poor lighting. We'll put this picture in the description or a link to it.
Yeah.
Did you happen to watch a documentary called Russian Yeti: The Killer Lives in preparation for this episode, Morgs?
No, I didn't. I didn't need to.
Because I watched it, and it is a fucking piece of shit. And that photo that you just mentioned is one of the things that they used to say, oh, it was definitely the Yeti. These people knew that the Yeti was stalking them. They even took a photo of it. Yeah. And it's not. It's just a dude. It's just one of the hikers.
Is it?
They just took a photo of him standing next to a tree.
Do you think it's a little convenient then, Lachlan, that they have all these beautiful in-focus pictures of all these people? So, meaning, pose for a photograph, I'll take a photograph. We can take photographs very well. There's no issues with any of the photographs we're taking. And then the Yeti walks past and they're like, oh, fuck, let's quick snap a photo. And they don't have time to focus in and all that. That's why it's all blurry, but every other photo is perfect.
It's not blurry.
Yeti photos are notoriously blurry.
It's not blurry. It's just the lighting where the guy's standing. You can only see his silhouette. And if you want to talk about perfectly in frame and not blurry photos, you look at photo number 34, I think it's called, the last photo that was taken on any of their cameras. You tell me that's perfectly in focus and not blurry.
No, all the stuff of the wilderness and the people was in focus. No, but the Yeti theory is only 90% likely, and I think the 10% issue is because there's that photo of the Yeti, and then there's also the fact that they were writing this satirical journal as like a team bonding exercise and stuff.
Evening O'Torton.
Yeah. So, Brad, do you want to explain that?
What's it? What? It's a satirical journal.
Oh yeah, they made this. They made their own version of like The Onion. They made this fake satirical newspaper because that's what Russian people did to entertain themselves in 1959, I guess.
I did not come across this.
So they, as part of it, one of their articles or one of their things was, we've spotted the Yeti and now we know for sure that the snowman exists.
Yeah, so now we know the snowman exists.
A lot of people have taken that to think to. A lot of people have assumed or, pretended that means that they've been writing in their journal, we saw the Yeti and it exists, but really they were just writing, jokes and stuff.
After I watched Russian Yeti, The Killer Lives, I looked that up because they used that as well as definitive proof that they had seen the Yeti. And as soon as you look it up, it's, this was a satirical newspaper.
It's convenient though, isn't it?
I actually didn't hear about this satirical. I heard about diary entries and they were referenced.
Yeah, no,
I thought that they were all serious diary entries.
It was called Evening O'Torton, which is the mountain.
The mountain is
going to climb, but never got to.
There you go. That is interesting.
Yeah,
maybe they were trying to hide it from government operatives by pretending that it was satire. It was the perfect.
How does the Yeti explain the radiation, Morgan?
Oh, we're going to cover a few theories. And then I've got my explanation that kind of brings everything together. So if I just tell you how the Yeti and the radiation goes together now, everyone will be confused.
You don't want to pop that money shot straight away. No,
I'll tie it together. It's fine. But some people think that the photograph of the Yeti was actually a staged fake photograph of the Yeti, so they could use it for their satirical newspaper.
Okay. And are you going to tell us how they're wrong?
That just seems quite convenient to me.
Oh, okay.
It's just a dude.
All right. Well, if we're all done with the Yeti,
for now.
Else to add. Yeah, for now. Okay, cool. Another potential theory is that of infrasound. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with infrasound, so
I am intimately familiar with infrasound, but please continue.
Yes, well, a layman's explanation of infrasound is that it's a low frequency.
Tell me as if I didn't know what it was.
Okay. Infrasound is a low-frequency sound below 20 hertz. It has been shown to cause feelings of awe and fear in humans. It has also been suggested that since it is not consciously perceived, it may make people feel vaguely odd or...
Is this like the brown sound that makes you shit your pants?
Yeah, I guess that supernatural events are taking place as well. This could explain why the group seemingly fled the tent for some unknown reason. It could also explain why such experienced hikers seemingly acted in the face of all their training and fled into the cold wilderness so unprepared. How do you guys feel about this one?
I read a book called Dead Mountain by Donnie Icar.
Yes, I wanted to get around to that. There was some great literature out there on this.
I read it this week. It's a very good book and it goes into a lot of detail. This dude actually went to Russia twice just to investigate the Dyatlov Pass incident, and he did the hike himself. He went to the site. He does a very good job of explaining a lot of theories away, explaining why they couldn't be plausible, but the one he lands on is infrasound. Caused by a Carnan vortex, which is wind hitting a surface at exactly the right angle and creating all these little cyclones that create that infrasound that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
You don't buy it?
I don't buy it because infrasound only has that that making people crazy effect on roughly 25% of people.
Yep.
Doesn't affect everyone. What are the odds? And Morgan, you might want to do some quick maths. What are the odds that all 9 people there were part of that 25% of humanity that are affected by infrasound in such a violent way?
So that'd be 1 over 4 to the power of 9. 4 to the power of 9 is 2 to the power of 18. And 2 to the power of 10 is 1,000,000. 2 to the power of, well, a bit over 1,000,000. 2 to the power of 20 would be 1 trillion. So
yeah, 1 in a trillion.
Half a billion. No, 1 in 250 billion. Let's not be ridiculous.
Okay. Well, either way, those aren't betting odds.
So 1 in 250 billion. Also, by the way, you just got an intimate example of why we call Morgan a robot. But yeah, so
it's a power of 2. I'm working binary.
Very, very, very highly unlikely that all of them would have been affected by the infrasound like that. 2, how does that explain the injuries of Dubinina, Zolotaryov, Kolevatov, and Thibaut Brignol? How does that explain their injuries? And how does it explain Dubinina's missing tongue? Dubinina, Zolotaryov, Kolevatov, and Thibaut Brignol.
Yep. He did a pretty good job there.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah. Thank you, Brad, for not being a patronising piece of shit.
I think that the main thing that needs to be explained is what got them out of the tent. Their resulting injuries.
That's right. That's the biggest question. Yeah. These incredibly experienced hikers, they had their grade 2 certification. They were doing this hike to get their grade 3 certification, which is the highest you can get. What made them run out of the tent, cut it open from the outside? I don't think you mentioned that. The tent was cut open from the inside.
Inside, yes, yeah.
Yeah. In 3 spots, so more than one person, cut it open from the inside, and then they didn't run away. They walked away. The footprints show that they were moving at like walking pace in like a orderly single file line.
Yes, I mean I did cover that in my rundown of the facts that they seem to flee
what makes them do that?
And that is the hardest thing to explain. I don't think I've seen a theory that adequately explains it.
The infrasound theory posits that the noise from the infrasound made them do that. They were just scared of whatever they were feeling and wanted to get away from it.
They might also not necessarily have all needed to be affected by the infrasound. They could have only, maybe 1 or even 2 of them were affected by it and the others pursued.
Okay, so you think 1 or 2, well 3, because 3 people cut open from the inside. So you think 3 of them were affected and the rest of them chased after them?
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, that I'm just saying, like, if I'm looking at it from every angle, that it might not necessarily
the devil's avocado.
Yes, the devil's avocado. Not necessarily all 9 needed to be affected by whatever phenomena it was that caused them to leave. Yeah, but
if you were in a tent in the fucking middle of Siberia and some guy you were with cut open the tent from the inside, started screaming and running half naked through the snow down the bottom of the mountain, would you go, oh, I better follow him?
Way. There's no way.
I'd probably put shoes on first, at least.
Again, the infrasound, doesn't necessarily explain why pretty much all of them had no shoes, like just socks.
That's the thing. Whatever made them run out of the tent, they had to go right then and there.
Yeah.
Like there was no time to get dressed.
That's exactly it. It's like if someone left the tent or someone was affected and they took off, then why didn't the remaining people first put on clothes and shoes and then go after them? Because they know they're smart people. They would know that going out there completely undressed,
it's a death sentence.
You'll end up dead as well. So you can't help someone if you're dead.
That's right.
So I mean, again, it's just so incredibly bizarre.
Yeah, the infrasound theory doesn't make any sense to me. I don't like the one. I like the one with the wind. Do you want to explain that one, Brad?
Well, I had an order, but if you want to jump in...
I know, you do it your way.
Alright, I'll do it my way, because I'm the host, motherfucker. Alright.
Brad is a host person.
So, I've decided to combine sort of the next two theories because they're very similar.
Okay.
Essentially, some people have theorized that parachute landmines or missiles could have either A, thrown the hikers into a shell-shocked state of trauma, causing them to flee, then perish in the subsequent barrage, or B, worried the hikers into thinking an avalanche could have or had been triggered, forcing them to flee. Some people have also suggested that the absence of soft tissue damage with concurrent massive internal injuries could only be caused by the concussion of an explosion.
Yes, I did read that. The massive internal damage, but no soft tissue damage, is consistent with shockwaves from an explosion.
Or
also,
Yetis, yeah.
The Soviets were notorious for secret military tests, cover-ups, and killing people. So
that would explain the radiation as well.
Yeah, I mean, if it was some sort of nuclear material in the missile, it could have affected, or
you know what it doesn't explain?
What?
Lyudmila Dubinina's missing tongue. Bombs don't rip tongues out.
Maybe if it was really close, I don't know. Again, it's like there's a lot of theories that explain, say 80% of it, or even 90%.
That's the problem. I cannot
nothing
find
just lines up.
Anything that explains every piece of evidence.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to explain every piece of evidence. It just has to be plausible to work with every piece of evidence.
That's right. It's just got to be plausible.
But there's none that works with every piece of evidence. Not even explains it and has a full, comprehensive, understanding of it. Just one that isn't ruled out for some reason.
I mean, I see why some people favour this, because the Russian military is known to conduct tests in the Ural Mountains.
Absolutely.
So that's a fact. There were witnesses saying there were bright lights in the area, which could have been explosions, or parachute landmines do have a flare attached, which burns brightly in the sky. So it could have potentially been that they were seeing. They also could have just been completely and utterly mistaken. So
if it wasn't for the missing tongue, which I'll remind our listeners was removed from her mouth while she was still alive, and the estimated timeline of the movements of the hikers, if it wasn't for those two things, I would buy into the missile test, nuclear rocket test, parachute mine theory. Yeah. But I can't because of those two things.
Fair enough. How do you feel about it, Morgs? Likelihood, percentage, or out of 10?
Well, after the Yeti, this one's definitely my favourite theory, I think.
I can't wait for you to explain the Yeti at the end.
I think this one could actually explain a lot of the inconsistencies and a lot of the seemingly unexplainable things in it, because, of course, after the KGB or the military or whoever had fucked these people up, they had to stage some stuff to make it look like something else. So potentially the reason the whole site is fucked up and looks really weird is because they've come back and said like, oh, well, we can't have all their bodies next to each other. We have to move them around, or, we can't have it look like they all died from this. So let's make one of them look like they died from that or whatever. So
it's interesting that you say that, Morgs, because in my research, I came across this little tidbit. Two of the bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and
Georgie,
Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, were both found with liver mortis spots on the back of their bodies. Now, liver mortis is when the blood pools after the heart stops beating in your body, and it creates these spots on your body. So the investigators can tell how you were positioned when you died.
Yeah.
Because the blood pools all in one spot. Now, both of these guys were found with these liver mortis spots on their backs, but the search teams found both those bodies face down. So they were moved They were turned over after they died.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I can explain that.
Go on.
I don't think you can.
So the first one, was it Doroshenko?
It was, yes. Yuri Doroshenko.
Doroshenko was one of the first people to die.
I agree with that.
Yep, at the big cedar tree from all the investigation, there seems to be him and Georgie were the first two to die.
Yep,
and,
2 Yuris.
Yeah, the 2 Yuris. They believe that people strip them of their clothes for additional warmth, which also leads to them being in a pretty decent mental state, like smart enough to know they need to take clothes.
Yeah, and that's how you can sort of put together a sort of timeline of their movements.
Yeah, so I believe that they waited for him to die, obviously, and maybe they waited some time, enough time for blood to pool, and then, you know, when they were taking the clothes, they flipped him over.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
They did have to cut the clothes off him. That's why I think it was Dubinina had his pants around her feet. Yep. And they weren't. They were wrapped around her feat. They weren't like
they were like ripped up and used as foot wrappings.
I think the same goes for Thibaut Brignol, because he had a concussion, like a contusion to the head that would have
his head was fucked up.
Yeah, basically would have rendered him unconscious and unable to move, and he would have died shortly afterwards. If hypothermia hadn't gone to him. So I believe, again, he was moved post-mortem by one of the surviving members. That would be my assertion.
I would agree. I would agree with both of those. But it doesn't fit with the theory that the government or the military or whatever came and tampered with the site afterwards.
Yes. Which is another potential theory I've got lined up here, which is the Russian government. So
secret police.
Essentially, yeah, the Russian government or the military had the hikers killed. The Soviets, again, were notorious for doing all manner of shady shit. And it's theorized that potentially the students stumbled across a Soviet secret, potentially having to do with nuclear or radiological weapons. And then they were pursued and silenced one by one by the Russian military or government. Some others have even theorized that the students were carrying radioactive material for the government as part of a KGB mission, which is not actually the first time in history that would have happened. That people carried radioactive material, because obviously they were in the middle of the Cold War, to full US CIA. They would place small amounts of radioactive material at sites that weren't related to any kind of nuclear research. Just to
throw scanners off.
Yeah, basically just fuck with people. And then during this mission, they were either double-crossed and killed, or killed while planning to double-cross CIA agents. So that they potentially were out there to meet the CIA.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Yeah, shit went downhill. And I
have heard that 3 of them were KGB plants trying to root out a CIA mole.
Yeah. So this obviously does explain why this could explain why there was radiation found on the victim's clothes. And I mean it's shady, and it could.
It would also explain Alexander Kolevatov's death. I know officially they say it's hypothermia, but the dude's neck was snapped.
Yeah, it was like a ridiculous angle.
Yeah. So he had an open wound behind his ear, and his neck was snapped, which is very similar to the way the KGB operate.
Well, just going around snapping necks.
snapping necks and cashing checks.
Shit.
Yeah, they'll hit behind the ear and then snap the neck.
Well, I mean, during my research, though, I did come across a less fantastic explanation for the radiation. Which is that Kolevatov and Krivonyshenko both worked at nuclear facilities before transferring to the university.
Yes, that is true.
And it was on their items of clothing that the latent radiation was found. And it was only 3 pieces of clothing. It wasn't all of their clothing.
However, the amount of radiation that was on the clothing would mean that those items of clothing would have to be what they were wearing while they were cleaning up nuclear waste.
Yes, it was a high level, yeah.
And they had not been washed or cleaned ever since being worn.
Well, it was Soviet Russia.
That's a good point. That's the only way they could have maintained that level of radiation.
I should have had the Sev's.
It was the highest one was
like
9,000 decays per minute.
Yeah.
The safe level for human exposure is 5,000 decays per minute.
Yeah, I think two of them were just over 5,000.
Yeah, one was like 5,500 and I think the other one was 6,000.
Yeah. And then there was one that was a
9,
bit of a jump. Yeah, 9,000. Yeah. So yeah, they were quite irradiated. But
I mean, they weren't glowing.
Yeah, they weren't glowing like I think people were picturing in their head. I know I certainly was. As far as the Russian government goes, another thing I have trouble reconciling is like footprints and tracks. Like they clearly left, if they wanted to cover it up, they left a track essentially leading to the bodies at the base of the cedar tree. Well, I mean, it did run out about 500 meters outside of the tent, but they could have gotten rid of all of that, and there was also no other footprints in the vicinity.
Yeah, that's true, but it was also like 2 weeks since the deaths before it was discovered, so it's hard to know exactly what the tracks were from and everything like that. Like the people who originally found all the dead bodies as well and stuff, they were volunteers who had gone out on a search party. It wasn't like they were forensic investigators. Like
yes,
I don't know how well we can assume that everything that's been documented about the scene originally can be verified.
Yeah. Well, it was said to be 9 sets of footprints, which matches up with how many people there were.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were booted and others were socked and some were barefoot, which also matches up with the way the bodies were found.
Yeah.
I mean, think the footprints are accurate.
Yeah.
But obviously, any cover-up, they're going to cover up their own footprints as well.
Yeah, that also, again, could be a thing. So, I don't really particularly believe this one, though.
No.
I just think it's a bit too fantastic, if you know what I mean. It's too complicated. Though it was Cold War era Soviet Union, so...
Wow, that's right. The Ruskies were just kind of doing whatever the fuck they
were
wanted.
Just fucking mental. So if it wasn't the Ruskies, maybe it was the locals. The indigenous Mansi people are a nomadic tribe. Yep. And they've lived in the area for many generations.
They're like the Russian version of Aboriginals, yeah?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
So some have theorized that Dyatlov inadvertently steered the expedition through Mansi sacred grounds. This infuriated the Mansi. They then attacked and pursued the group, leading to their demise. So did the natives go wild, or what do you reckon?
Mansi gone wild.
Yeah, Mansi gone wild. I personally don't believe this one because when I was looking into the Mansi, essentially there is no sacred lands there. They refer to it as Dead Mountain, but it also sort of roughly translates in Mansi as well as don't go there. Because there's nothing there. There's no food. There's no animals.
There's no plants or anything.
There's just some nothing. Trees, it's barren. So it's like they don't consider it sacred because they're just like, fuck this place. We don't want to bar it.
That's what the dead in Dead Mountain means. It doesn't mean like everyone who goes here dies. It means
it's just
there's just nothing there.
So I don't know. I think maybe the Mansi have been set up a little bit here. They seem like pretty rational people.
Yeah, they're very peaceful people, and they've never attacked anyone before or since. And like you said, it's not a sacred site for them. Yeah,
I think there was someone inadvertently confused people by saying that there were sacred Mansi sites at the top of Dead Mountain. There was some like a ritual site or something like that, which confused people and sort of brought the Mansi into it when it had literally nothing to do. I think they're not even located anywhere near there. Like we're talking like tens or even hundreds of kilometers away.
Lachlan,
yeah,
this one seems to be like to me. It sounds implausible as well, but this one seems to be probably the best explanation of why the woman's tongue was missing. That could have been like a trophy, or like a fuck point. You or something like that.
That's a good point because what was it? The Native Americans that took ears.
Scalps.
That's right. Yeah, they took scalps. So it's plausible that the Mansi could take tongues. I suppose that's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
Well, I mean, what if theoretically they didn't actually pursue them or anything like that? They came across them in a state of distress and took advantage of it.
That's a shitty thing to do.
Yeah, but like they found the 4 people in the ravine, and were like, "I'm gonna take a scalp, a la the tongue."
I'm going to take a mouth scalp.
Yeah, mouth scalp. Yeah, mouth scalp this bitch. And, I don't know, maybe it increases, like, penile erection potency or something. I don't know.
No, they're Russian natives, not Chinese natives.
Oh, good God. There's two things in the autopsy, just while we're on this, that I found interesting. While we're talking about taking advantage of people.
If anyone wants to be like fucked up beyond belief, go look at the autopsy because these guys.
Yeah, and the photos. The photos are real bad.
Yeah.
The coroner put in the autopsies of both the women that they were or had not been sexually active preceding the events, and they put that in there purely to rule out the fact that they'd been like kidnapped and raped and killed as a result.
Oh Jesus! I thought it was to check whether there was some sort of love triangle situation.
Yeah, that too. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was it.
That could have went deadly.
Yeah. All right. Well, seems how the Mansi didn't do it. Let's move on.
Mansi definitely did not do it.
Move on to some
Mansi, you're innocent.
Hashtag free the Mansi.
Free the Mansi.
We'll move on to some more natural phenomena here. So some have theorized that an avalanche is the culprit behind this sudden exit from the tent.
Wrong.
Some believe that the group was either hit by one or believed one to be happening, causing them to hack their way out of the tent.
More plausible, but still wrong.
Flee into the wilderness. Surely the experienced hikers would only flee the relative safety of the tent if something had compromised that. So I think this one is not particularly feasible because Dyatlov was an experienced hiker and he would know that area is not prone to avalanches.
Correct.
It is not a super steep slope. It's relatively shallow.
16 degrees.
Yeah, 16 degrees. So it's not prone to avalanches and
it's not, the slope that it's on is not, like an avalanche cannot happen on that.
Yeah, essentially it would be very, very, like, extremely unlikely to happen.
Do you know how many avalanches have been recorded on that same mountain?
I'm going to say, like, 0.
Yeah, none, ever.
Yeah. Like, it would have, I just, and Dyatlov should have been aware of that. I
Absolutely.
So, I don't see that as being an option. The only, there's no way an avalanche hit them. The tent was still standing. Well, not standing, but poles from one end, both ends of the tent were still standing.
Ski poles and skis outside were still stuck in the ground upright.
Yeah. So there's no way that they were hit by an avalanche. I do think that the idea that they could have thought one was happening would be very unlikely, but if you did think that one was happening, you're not going to sit around and fucking wait to find out, eh?
If they thought it was an avalanche, why did they walk away from the tent instead of running?
You ever run in snow, bro?
No, I actually haven't.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fucking easy. This is my thing is that a lot of people say, oh, they didn't run. It's like, well, it was a fucking snowstorm, like deep snow. You see, would have been hard to run. You would have been like,
I think they can probably tell the footprints though. Like if they were trying to run, they'd be deeper. You would think.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Again, it's so fucking weird.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I don't think the avalanche. I'm with you guys, so I don't agree with the avalanche theory. I just think that if they, for some reason, got it into their head, they would.
Tell us about the winds, Brad. The winds.
This is the winds. This is the next one.
The winds of winter.
Katabatic winds.
Yeah.
Similarly to the avalanche theory, some have suggested that another natural phenomenon is to blame. Love that sound effect. And I was not prepared for it when I was going through the rundown, which threw me off a little bit.
Just trying to build the atmosphere.
A katabatic wind is a high-density air from a higher elevation that travels down a slope under the force of gravity. Katabatic winds can travel at hurricane speeds. Some people have theorized that the group may have been forced to leave the tent because of this, or even mistakenly believe this to be the onset of an avalanche, because it carries quite a bit of force with it. How do you guys feel about this one? I think this is a pretty decent one as well.
Morgs, you obviously have an opinion on this.
My theory for this is that the winds were extremely strong and they were worried that their tent was going to get blown away because the winds were so fucking intense. So they were like, until this wind subsides, we have to get out of here. because our tent could get blown away at any minute. And this is the only one I can see that explains why they got out of the tent in a hurry, but then didn't run after that. Because the tent getting blown away is the concern here. It's not like getting blown away while you're walking away. So they don't have to run away from danger. They just have to walk, but they have to get out of the tent in a hurry.
Interesting. I mean, who cut out her tongue?
Mansi. They came along afterwards.
And how did the injuries happen to the 4 found in the ravine?
Yeah.
Well, isn't a possibility there that they fell into the ravine?
That seems to be my belief.
They'd been down in there digging out this snow den, though, and they weren't found that far away from it. Like, if they had have fallen from the snow den to where they were found, that couldn't cause those injuries.
Well, was there also a theory that they got hit by like a large clump of snow after, like, from the top of the ravine, fell into it?
My understanding is that they fell from the ravine into it. Possibly like a small ice shelf came with them. That's why all 4 of them were there, and it wasn't enough to sustain. Like, they fell in, and then they were crushed by the snow itself.
It was determined, and I don't know how you determine this because I'm not a meteorologist or anything, but it was determined that the snow on top of them was fresh snowfall, not like it hadn't fallen on top of them and killed them. They were dead, laying there before that snow fell on them.
Well, that is interesting because I know that they were found some months later. Sorry, I don't think I brought this up. The initial people were found 2 weeks after the search began, which was a total of a month after they died.
Yeah,
the initial group. So the 3 who had attempted to return to the tent and the 2 under the cedar tree. But the remaining 4 were found in May, I believe. So the deaths occurred in February. They were found in May, so some months later. And I would have trouble believing that they could tell which snow fell on them and which didn't because it would have melted and
like I said, I don't know how they determined that, but that's just what I read in some of the reports.
Yeah. I feel like that they were crushed by snow. Like that's my big thing is that the snow fell on them. They were stuck there, not necessarily dead, freezing. They froze to death before the snow completely crushed them to death. And then more damage occurred to their bodies afterwards with the melting and re-freezing of the snow because they were on a river bank. So the snow melted and changed their position a bit.
And the tongue?
I still think it's natural decomposition, but the blood in the stomach fucks
Brad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the tongue, the fucking tongue, man.
That's right. It's the telltale tongue.
I
beating under those floorboards.
I agree with you, Morgs, that the catabatic winds is a good way to explain why they left the tent. It is
without running.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites because you would notice a difference from regular blinding snowstorm versus catabatic winds.
Yeah.
Like, there is a pressure behind it because it's that high density air. So it would concern you. And like I said, they can hit hurricane levels of windiness. So,
is that a technical term?
Yeah. Again, the fucking tongue, man. The tongue.
I don't know about the tongue. Like, there was blood in her stomach, but people were saying blood in the stomach could be from internal bleeding, from blunt force trauma. It could be unrelated to the tongue, or maybe she bit her tongue while she was alive and swallowed some blood, and then it came off after that.
And then later on, it got pulled off
by the Mansi.
Yeah, well, like
I'm not buying it.
Stuff.
Privyet, comrades. Yuri here from Yuri State-Sanctioned Vodka. We've got former Soviet bloc stock to move, and we need you to rise up and seize the means of party. Our country may be bleak and depressing, but our selection of premium vodka sure isn't. We've got all the major brands and styles, including and limited to altercation vodka, once, twice, or thrice distilled. Nothing more. Head to our website, yuristatesanctionedvodka.ru for prices so low they'll make the motherland proud. Use special promo code PROLETARIAT today and receive half off your first purchase. That's ussv.ru for the only state-sanctioned vodka this side of the old river. Head there and bourgeoisie our prices. You won't KGB disappointed.
Alright. Well, since that you're not buying this one, this is another more... Okay, well, leaving behind natural phenomena,
Mm-hmm.
some have theorized that perhaps an altercation led to the group's decision to leave the tent.
Yep.
Semyon Zolotaryov was at least 15 years the group's senior and had joined up at the last minute. Semyon was ex-military as well. Perhaps he had been sent by the Russian government to fulfill a mission and had become compromised, forcing him to attempt to kill off the students. Or perhaps days of grueling treks and Dyatlov's last-minute change to the plan had put an additional strain on the group. Maybe it was just a simple disagreement that got out of hand due to everyone's fatigue. Do you guys think Semyon got compromised and had to crack a few skulls? Literally?
Well, I want to give you some evidence that supports a fight breaking out. Not that I buy this, but... so Igor Dyatlov and Rustem Rustic Slobodin both had bruising and injuries on their hands and wrists that are consistent with injuries sustained in hand-to-hand combat.
Oh, really?
Yes. So they, whether it was each other or something that was trying to attack them, they were fighting off something. It's especially with Rustem Slobodin, it's not because it looks like he fell down multiple times before he fell down for the last time and died. But the injuries, normally you fall down, you land on your palms.
Yeah.
But there was no injuries on his palms. It was all on the outside of his hands.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. Like, you don't fall down on your fucking the back of your hands.
Yeah. I mean, I did read as well in the autopsies that pretty much all of them had cuts, abrasions, and bruises in various areas.
All of them had a lot of, I say minor, not minor, but, compared to some of the injuries, minor injuries, like, abrasions, scratches, cuts.
Yeah. Which they did say they ruled that it was consistent with an attempt to fleeing from the tent. They reckon that these are normal injuries that could have been sustained.
A lot of that could have happened while they were hiking as well. Like, you're hiking up a steep mountain in snow, you're going to fall and cut yourself and get bruises and stuff.
Well, I know I stop and punch the snow every chance I get.
But yeah, it's just the injuries on the outside of the hands of those two is very interesting.
Yeah.
And especially because those two and Zina Kolmogorova were the three heading back to the tent. And from closest to the tent to furthest away, it was Zina, then Rustem Slobodin, then Dyatlov.
Yeah.
So it's possible that maybe she was trying to run away from those two and they were chasing after her. They were fighting each other for her love or something.
I think they're just fighting for survival.
Didn't Dyatlov...
Well, the other six were just dying in the snow.
I read somewhere that Dyatlov had a photo of one of the women on him when he died.
Yes, it was Zina.
Yeah, it was Zina. I wasn't sure it was her.
It was Zina.
So there you go. Possibilities. That does open up a fight.
Someone raised this to Yuri Yudin, who was the 10th hiker, the one that turned back and survived. Mm-hmm. And apparently he was very offended by that idea.
Oh, okay.
He said that sort of thing would never happen. They were all platonic friends.
Ooh. Well, it was Soviet Russia, and they were pretty highly monitored. Like, their free time was pretty carefully controlled. It's possible he was just covering up for them.
It doesn't explain why everybody left the tent. It would be like, all right, you two guys and Xena Warrior Princess, like, you guys take it outside. I'm not leaving the fucking tent. I'm not walking a mile down the hill.
Again, it's one of those ones that doesn't encompass anything. There's parts that fit and parts that don't. I also don't give a lot of weight to Semyon Zolotaryov being a KGB or military agent that killed everyone, because there was just no soft tissue.
If any of them are, it would be him.
Yeah,
but
he is ex-military. And he shows up at the last minute. It's like, hey, teenager, or not teenager, but hey, kids, let's go on a hike.
Comrades. I come on hike with you. We go in mountain, very far.
Very far.
No screams.
So yeah, if it turned out that he was like some sort of, KGB operative, he would definitely, like, he's more likely than anybody else.
Yeah. But there's no evidence to support that.
Well, this is my final theory. I don't know if you guys have any you want to throw on at the end. But finally, people have also theorized that just nothing sinister happened at all.
Someone's got him out of the tent,
Strongly disagree.
The relative young age of all but one of the expedition may have been the biggest deciding factor. Fatigue, some inexperience, and simple poor decision-making led to a group abandoning the tent and unable to find their way back. Furthermore, some people have theorized that potentially the camp stove smoke or a CO2 gas buildup drove the hikers from the tent. And this could have been due to human or mechanical error. This would also explain the hurry to leave. How do you guys feel about this one?
I'm glad you mentioned the stove, Brad.
Yes.
Because there's a very good video on YouTube by a channel called Lemino.
Yeah, I like Lemino. That was the first video I watched.
He's got a really good video on Dyatlov Pass.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually the first video that comes up if you search Dyatlov Pass on YouTube.
That's why it was the first one I watched.
Yeah. And he theorizes that it was the camp stove and that the tent either filled with smoke or there was some sort of carbon monoxide poisoning. But let me stick a spoke in your wheels here, Bradley.
Yes, I know what you're about to say.
The stove was not assembled.
Yes,
on
correct.
that night. The searchers who found the tent, when they opened it, the stove was in pieces.
Yes.
Had not been assembled, and I doubt that they took the time to let it cool down enough to be disassembled and then packed it all up, and then we're like, oh, we got to get out of here because of this smoke.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, like, again, everything sort of fits with this one, and then there's that one glaringly obvious detail.
That's right.
So, like, it does explain why they left and why they potentially walked in, single file and
doesn't explain the tongue.
Again, nothing explains the fucking tongue.
Yeti.
But this was another one that I felt like strongly about, and then again, because he says in his video that the stove was assembled, but then I saw from multiple other places that the stove was disassembled.
Yeah, well, when he talks about it, he shows a photo of the tent with the chimney and stove sticking out.
Yeah,
but
an earlier
that was
photo.
obviously that was obviously taken prior to that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he doesn't address that.
Yeah, which is a bummer because his theory, apart from that, is very good. So.
Yeah, well, I watched that video because it was one of the first things I watched in researching. I was like, okay, yep, solved. Case closed.
Yeah, it's done.
But then I looked into it further. I'm like, actually, it's not even close to true.
Well,
case is getting busted wide open.
All right, Morgs, hit us with your overarching theory.
All right, so you're done with all your
those theories. Are the big ones that I could find online. So,
all right, cool. So, how many of the guys started the fire at the bottom of the forest and died there?
It seemed to be two.
There was two found there, but
they believe everyone was there at once.
There was socks and like clothing fragments and that sort of thing that point to more than two people being there. I would imagine that all 9 of them started the fire down there. Yeah,
and the fire was an attempt to get warm, and it it wasn't enough, and they realised that was not going to work.
Incorrect.
Oh, okay. Oh shit.
Okay. So, a few of the dudes were outside the tent taking pictures of UFOs when they spotted the Yeti coming for them. Okay. Now, knowing that the Yeti is an ornery fella who likes to eat, and there's no way they can outrun a giant with such big feet, these guys make the gut-wrenching decision to leave their comrades behind and hightail it out of there. They run down to the forest and start a fire, hoping they can make the most effective of ancient weapons, fire on a stick, for when the Yeti inevitably comes looking for them.
Oh, shit.
The guys inside the tent hear the Yeti growling and understandably panic. Not only are they worried for themselves, they're worried for their friends who are outside taking photos of UFOs. Not wanting their friends to be eaten, they cut their way out of the relative safety of the tent and, armed with those same knives, get ready to face down the Yeti. This is when they notice their mates are running down the mountain, essentially leaving them to die. As they are cursing their comrades, the Yeti picks one of the chicks. The Yeti picks one of the chicks up, and as she lets out a blood-curdling scream, the Yeti bites out her tongue, taking part of her lips in the next bite. Next, he goes for the eyes, the sweet, sweet, juicy eyes. The rest of the group panic and run off, understandably. The Yeti gives chase, usually...
Stop laughing at your own story.
The Yeti gives chase, using the woman as a weapon, swinging her at her friends, causing blunt force trauma to both her and her friends. It is now that the UFO becomes an IFO, an identified flying object. It was the Soviet military on the hunt for the Yeti, which used to be peaceful but became angry after exposed to nuclear contamination in Mayak in 1957, not far from the Ural Mountains. Not as big as Chernobyl, but it happened. Look it up. This explains the radioactivity found on some of the deceased's clothing. The men who ran away at the start are slowly freezing to death as the fire they created is not doing much good. The others, who have now caught up from before and are not freezing to death due to the running and the adrenaline, see their comrades dying and decide to return the favour. They take their clothes and leave them for dead.
Oh, shit.
Little did they know that those were the lucky ones. They attempt to hide from the Yeti in a makeshift hideout/shelter atop a ravine. The Yeti, with an already impressive sense of smell, which was heightened even more during radioactive contamination, can literally smell them from a mile away. He is angry, so angry at them trying to outsmart him that he throws away his now dead victim, tongueless, eyeless, and partially lipless, and starts body slamming and choke slamming the survivors in the ravine.
Oh, shit.
They ain't survivors no more.
Oh, no.
The Soviet military drop a parachute mine, stunning and knocking out the creature. They take him away in a helicopter, cure him of his radiation sickness, and return him to the Ural Mountains after a lengthy recovery. It's just the only explanation that really makes sense.
Well,
I'm glad we all took this seriously.
I covered all bases there.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I can't argue with that. You've
That is true.
solved after 6 decades.
I forgot
Case
how
closed.
ridiculous it was, and while I was reading, I remembered. So that's why I was laughing. I was like, "Oh god, why did I write that?"
God.
The Mansi people do believe in the Yeti. They call it the Menk.
The mink.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I've
Menk.
heard of that term
They
before,
think
the
it's
Menk,
they
yeah.
think it's real,
Oh.
and a lot of them
they
actually
live out there, so
believe that the Menk is what got them. It's between the prominent theories in the Mansi community is either the Menk or the lights in the sky, which probably ball lightning or aliens.
or missiles.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, that was beautiful, Morgs. Do you have a review to go this week, or?
Yeah, I've got a review.
All right. Well, hit us with it.
Morgan's movie review, confirmed for everyone's favourite segment. Harry and the Hendersons, 1987, is a fine family film. Your all-American, middle-class, inoffensive, straight-down-the-line American family crashes into a Sasquatch in their wood panel station wagon, and hilarity ensues. Well, hilarity if you're under the age of 12, probably. This movie isn't for your hardcore, intelligent, adult cryptozoologists who enjoy sophisticated, esoteric humour about their favourite cryptids, and therefore I, matching this description perfectly, was quite honestly pretty disappointed. I was even more disappointed that John Lithgow, known for his role as the Trinity Killer in Dexter, didn't call anyone a cunt, even though he had plenty of opportunities. His whole family were annoying and kept questioning his decisions. The Trinity Killer would have been dropping C-bombs at an unprecedented rate if his family were that insolent. Then you have Harry, as the Bigfoot became affectionately known, who was destroying his house and causing all kinds of personal problems for it. You know, really doing a bunch of cunty stuff.
Oh, fuck me.
Then you have this biggest cunt of all. This cunt named...
What the fuck?
This cunt named LaFleur. Who was...
God.
Who was clearly aching for a good cursing out, considering that, number one, he has a French name, and number two, he was trying to capture Harry for his own selfish purposes. Anyway, the other annoying part of this movie is that the ending teases a Nessie-based sequel that never came to fruition. It could have been called Nessie and the Mac something Scottish. Some third-generation Scottish Americans go to Scotland to learn more about their ancestry, and one of the kids is determined to find Nessie or some shit. It basically writes itself, but they never made it. In conclusion, because I've run out of tangents to go on, Harry and the Hendersons is definitely a movie I'll enjoy watching with my kids one day. But when you've seen John Lithgow hilariously call someone a cunt, the slapstick humour just doesn't do it anymore. 5 out of 10.
Oh, well. I just, I didn't think there'd ever be a day that I thought that the C-bomb was dropped too many times, but... And it is now Janine's least favourite subject, segment.
Nah, that's gonna keep it going.
Alright, well, now for everyone's real favourite segment, which is, of course, your host's segment, Brad's Power Rankings.
Brad's Power Rankings.
It's just
Fantastic.
so powerful.
Gets you pumped up.
Just, I feel it in my balls. You know? So this week's Power Rankings is a little more macabre than usual. A little blue, if you will. 5 worst ways to die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So it's
5.
It's 5, yep.
So it's
And
top 5.
Top 5. Top
How you
5
going?
worst ways to
Ascending
die.
or descending?
So it'll be starting at 5 and working up to 1.
Okay.
So 1 being
5
the
is
worst way to die. 5 being
So 1 is the worst.
Yeah. And
So
then
5 is an okay way to die.
Well, no, it's it's a terrible way to die, but not as bad as number 1.
Okay.
All right,
So really, you're going the opposite to what you normally do.
yeah,
Normally, you go the worst best first, but this time you're doing the best worst first.
yeah, changing things up, man.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Hard to follow.
Number 5,
Burnt alive.
Oh.
the idea of smelling yourself cook while you're waiting for your inevitable demise really doesn't appeal to me. On the plus side, convection will kill you long before fire ravages your corpse.
And did you see those monks do that in the Vietnam War? They were fucking badass.
Yeah.
Oh, man, they fucking balls of steel. Because they didn't even scream, they just sat there.
Yeah.
That's next level.
Mind over matter.
Ugh, disgusting as well. Alright. Number 4.
Crushed to death.
Now, I'll say this in 2 ways. The merciful, sweet release of a quick crushing, over and done in an instant. The other is a slow, agonizing death of being trapped under some sort of debris. Even if you somehow get freed, your body tries to kill you with compartment syndrome. This one just all around sucks. Either you go out in a bloody mess, or you live long enough to wish you did. No thanks. So yeah, nah, not a big fan of that. Alright. Number 3. Drowning.
Oh, no thanks.
I've read somewhere that people describe feeling calm as they accept the inevitability of drowning. These people are fucking wrong, and they are more than likely sociopaths. As Yuri Lipsky can attest, there is nothing calm about drowning. Well, at least he could if he hadn't filmed his own drowning at the blue hole off the coast of Egypt. Fuck anyone or anything that goes against the forces of nature that compel us to stay on dry land in an oxygen-rich environment. Number 2. Caving.
Oh, no. Nah.
This shit is ridiculous. If you do it and get trapped, you're dead. Why do you think they make such a big song and dance about it when someone is rescued? It's because the earth literally demanded blood and we defied it. You remember that feeling of being crushed by your sibling as a kid? Now do that hundreds of meters underground and in pitch black.
Oh, I don't like it.
John Jones did. They even knew where he was and they couldn't pull him out. They eventually just left his body down there and sealed the cave. Good luck sleeping tonight.
Good God.
Here we go.
Didn't those kids in Thailand get rescued?
Yeah, someone died rescuing them.
Weather.
No.
Well, he was Australian and the kids were Thai, so, Was it really a fair trade?
Not at all. Number 1. I'm affectionately referring to this as Dyatlov past. Up until I started researching this episode, I didn't think anything could be worse than being trapped in the pitch black darkness hundreds of meters underground. I was wrong. Try that, but being outside and freezing to death. Next to naked, terrifying, and watching your friends die one by one. At least in a cave, you have time. Time to free yourself. Time to find an exit. Anything. In Dyatlov Pass, they didn't have anything. The environment robbed them of their mental faculties, their physical prowess, all while the clock was ticking. The 4 last surviving members were probably stoked when they got their heads and chests caved in. That's my power rankings this week.
Good God. Okay.
So yeah, a little more blue or macabre than normal, but you know.
I like using that as a verb to get Dyatlov past.
Dyatlov past.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I just want to leave our listeners with some facts about how the scene at Dyatlov Pass was found by the search team. Just so you guys can go off and think about this yourself. Try and figure out just what happened. Mm-hmm. So, Yuri Doroshenko, who was found under the cedar tree, his body was found with foamy grey fluid coming out of his mouth, most likely from a pulmonary edema. But the fact that it was coming out of his mouth suggests that something was pressing on his chest before death.
No, okay.
Also, he has severe frostbite on all his fingers and toes. Had he survived, they would have all had to have been amputated. Yuri Georgy Krivnishenko, who was found under the cedar tree with Doroshenko, had skin missing from the backs of his hands. That skin was found inside his own mouth. He had chewed it off. Igor Dyatlov, who was moving back up the hill towards the tent, was found clinging to a small tree which was bent over under the snow, and that's actually how they found him. He was the first body that they found. They saw this tree bent at a weird angle, uncovered the snow, and there's a frozen body hugging it for dear life, trying to pull himself up. Zinaida Zina Kolmogorova had bruising on the right side of her waist consistent with being hit by a baton or similar weapon. Rustam Rustic Slobodin, also heading up the mountain, had hemorrhaging and fractures on both sides of the head, which appear to have been caused by blows from a blunt object. While he died from hypothermia, it was likely sped up by going into shock after those blows. He also had skin torn off his right forearm. Lyudmila Liuda Dubinina, who probably suffered the worst death of all of them. As we've mentioned numerous times, she was missing most of her face and her tongue. There's 100 milligrams of blood in her stomach, suggesting it was removed while her heart was still beating. Her nose was also completely flattened. She had 10 broken ribs. She was, however, the best dressed of all of them. She had 4 layers of clothing on. Unfortunately, no shoes.
Lucky for her.
Semyon Sasha Zolotaryov. Now, he had very similar injuries to Dubinina. Obviously, as I said before, his neck was snapped and he had an open wound behind his ear. But his chest was also completely smashed in, very similar to Dubinina's missing ribs. Now, what's interesting is that the injuries match those two in direction and force, but their different body sizes suggest that they weren't a single event. So, the same thing probably hit them both, but not at the same time. Also, when he was found, he had his camera hanging around his neck. So no one could stop and get clothes before they left the tent, but he could grab his camera. Alexander Kolevatov, outer layers of his clothes were burned. Also, his eyes were missing. And Nikolai Kolya Thibault-Brignol, he probably got it the best. His only injuries were multiple fractures to the left temple, consistent with the force of a car crash. That's what killed him.
Well, no, he died from hypothermia.
Officially.
Technically, all 9 of them died from hypothermia.
The coroner said that after he sustained that blow, whatever it was, he could have lived a maximum of 3 hours and would have been unconscious the entire time.
Yeah. So he was, even if he survived, he wasn't surviving.
Just some questions as well that I want to leave people on asking. Obviously, we've already asked, why would these experienced hikers cut their way out of the tent with insufficient clothing but walk down the hill in an orderly manner? What killed the 4 in the ravine? What caused those injuries? Why did Zolotaryov have his camera? Why were the clothes radioactive? Why did 3 of them from the fire under the cedar tree head back up the hill towards the tent, but 4 of them went in the other direction to build a shelter? And I think most importantly, why did the government try to cover it up? They silenced Lev Ivanov, the lead investigator on it. After having investigated for a few weeks, he went to Moscow to brief them, and he came back just completely silent on the whole thing. From then on, it was hypothermia, nothing happened. And the government tried to stop funerals happening at all because they didn't want to draw any attention to it. In the end, they settled for having 2 funerals for the whole lot of them, that only the families were allowed to attend, though thousands of people filled the town of Yekaterinburg.
Yeah. God, that's a hard name to fucking say.
To see the procession. Named after Queen Catherine of the Russian royal family.
Yes, because Yekaterinburg sounds like Catherine.
And despite having researched this for 2 weeks flat out, it's all I've thought about. I haven't eaten, I haven't slept, I haven't showered. The only thing that I am sure of after all of this research is that Russia in 1959 and even today is an absolute fucking shithole to live in.
Yes. Comrades.
Now, we're kind of throwing back to season 1 a little bit here because we suggested a full episode on Dyatlov Fast in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, if it's okay with you, I'd like to do final thoughts.
All right.
Okay.
This is a segment we haven't done since season 1.
Yeah.
I wish I had known that because I would have kept all that for my final thoughts.
Yeah, well, retroactive. That was your final thoughts. I was listening to something about this incident today while I was doing the dishes, and just listening on my headphones, and they were describing the sort of things that Lachlan was describing with the autopsy and the injuries sustained to these people and stuff. And it really struck me that this would have been, regardless of what happened, it was obviously a terrifying, horrible experience that nobody should ever have to go through. I mean, these people were young students from a university that were trying to get, some certificate for this hiking thing. But, they were all very intelligent, competent people who were probably going to have good careers and stuff like that. Maybe, they would have helped the communist government do some terrible stuff or whatever.
Well, most of them were engineering students, so definitely would have helped the communist government do some terrible stuff.
None of them had arts degrees, is what we're trying to say.
But they could have also contributed to the space race and stuff. Or, either way, they just seemed to be normal people who were on their way for a hike, and they experienced, something that's, beyond horrifying and terrifying. So, we're kind of talking about this like it's a really interesting, cool, exciting thing to happen. But we should keep in mind that these are real people and they had a fucking horrifying experience.
Absolutely. So, I think it's terrifying.
Yeah. So, full respects to them and dedicate this episode to the memory of those poor souls who experienced something that no one should ever have to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair.
Press F to pay respects.
Yeah, get some Fs in the chat.
And just for anyone who's interested in what happened to Yuri Yudin, who turned back, he lived to the ripe old age of 75 and passed away in 2013. So,
oh well.
Yeah, so he lived a good life. Well, as good as you can live in Russia, but
full of regret.
Had a sore back, but still had his tongue and eyes. How's that, Brad? First episode hosting.
Oh, mate, I feel so relieved now that it's done.
No, you did really well.
All this weight off my shoulders.
You did very well.
Everybody, send in your love for Brad. Tell him you did a good job.
Good.
That's right.
That was a great episode.
We can get Brad to host some more episodes if you liked what he did. We'll force him to work.
The talent shouldn't have to work, but
okay. And with that, I think we'll end it here. Thank you so much for listening to our episode. I hope after speaking about this, I can get this horrible, horrible knowledge out of my brain.
Leave your wife alone. Let her sleep in peace.
Well, for other reasons. Visit our website, bradisabadperson.com. There you will find all of our episodes. You'll find links to all our social media. You'll find links to everywhere you can subscribe and listen to us. You can get in touch with us there. It's just a cool place to be. bradisabadperson.com. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. Give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. Or if you don't, just give us 5 stars anyway. Who's going to know? And share this episode with your friends, because this is a really interesting topic, and the more people that know about it and think about it, the better, because then I won't be alone in
Let's solve this mystery once and for all.
That's right. Let's get on a plane, go to Russia, figure out what happened.
Actually, speaking of that, they reopened the case on the 5th of February this year.
Yeah, but unfortunately they're only investigating 3 avenues, which I think is snow slab, avalanche, and high winds or something like that.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Russian government is complicit.